Alright, we are back. Beacon of Hype here. Yes, I'm fully aware that I'm catching myself saying Beacon of Hope on occasion during these videos, so I apologize. But yes, it's Beacon of Hype back with you for this next installment of The Magic Death. We are still on scenario number 1 for this one, Virtual Murder 2, The Magic Death. And if you'll notice, I've actually already started some of the process for us from the last installment. We already have a good chunk of the 6 hours gobbled up that I've spared you all, because the bulk of that consists of having already clicked on all 12 likely suspect interviews, which is about 20 minutes each. And essentially I need those completed in order for us to get the Alibis section accessible, so that we can find out any additional details from our assistant Lucy Farewell about each suspect's interview and what they provided to us as far as what their comings and goings were the night of the murder, and also just their overall relation to the victim, Elspeth Haskard. So we're going to start with Alyssa Palmer, see what we get for notes.
Alyssa Palmer reports spending the entire evening alone. This kind of alibi is impossible to verify. What she says about overhearing opera does match up with what Agnes Murray told us in her interview. And Jody Howland admitted that she saw lights inside Alyssa's apartment when she went out to the movie a little before 9. But neither of these things provides proof. She could have done it, and done it conveniently, no doubt about it.
And as we've said in earlier interviews, obviously the people that lived in the same building as Elspeth clearly had an easy opportunity as far as being able to have access, a little bit easier access to the victim's apartment, as well as a pretty quick escape route back to their own apartment.
At headquarters all night. According to Frankie, except for a few trips to the bathroom, Harry worked the next desk the entire time. 4 other people have verified this from the precinct. This alibi effectively eliminates him as a suspect.
Again, Delgado is very similar in terms of he's on the suspect list, just like the cleaning lady from the Sam Rupert case, Abelina, where they're there, but they're essentially just a glorified witness as opposed to a suspect. They're only on the suspect list because of their availability to the victim, I suppose, and to the location. Jamaica Bowen.
This suspect's story about spending the evening with her sister and her sister's boyfriend holds up. I questioned the 3 of them separately, and they all report watching the same television shows, and they could remember the plots in detail. Unless the 3 of them were in on this together, which I doubt, she's got a rock-solid alibi.
Okay. There's another tenant of the building, Jody Howland.
Jody Howland and her boyfriend ran into friends just before the 9:05 showing of The Last of the Mohicans at Bijou Cineplex last night. They were also recognized positively by the ticket taker leaving the movie 2 hours later. This places her away from the scene of the crime at the time of the murder. When they got home to the boyfriend's apartment, his roommate was still up. The 3 of them chatted casually for about 20 minutes before they all went to bed. This isn't the behavior of a recent murderer.
Okay. And Carl.
According to the University Library computer records, Carl Schulman used his ID to take out a copy of Myth, Image, and Early Senegal at 9:32 p.m. last night. No one at the Fuller Avenue Texaco station reports seeing him, however, but the night manager did say that after 9 p.m. they get about 80 customers an hour, so it wouldn't have been unusual. He himself claims that he went home and watched the news, but since he lives alone, there's no way to verify this. I asked around about the Naomi Freeman thing, and rumors are everywhere, but facts are very hard to pin down.
So even if he's got a decent alibi for this case, that the situation with this Naomi, love interest of his from back in the day, seems to keep creeping up. It's up to Agnes here.
Agnes Murray is another tough customer. By her own admission, she spent all of last night alone. WTXC did play an opera, a long one called Turandot. It started at 8 and ran a little past 11. This coincides with her report. It also matches up with what Alyssa Palmer told us about overhearing opera last night. When I asked Jody Howland about it, she said that she never hears anything from Agnes's apartment and she thinks she's out of range. Unfortunately, though, this alibi is impossible to verify.
That's two alibis that are pretty much impossible to verify because they were both alone, Alyssa and Agnes, and they were both in the apartment building. So, all right, the brother Damon.
Detective, it's your chief speaking. Only 2 hours left. The university president just called, suggesting we solve this case right away. He's related to Senator Trump, so do me a favor and wrap this thing up, would you?
Mm-hmm.
An employee at the Bagel Bakery verifies that she saw Damon Haskard last night at around 6:30. His roommate was home, but when he arrived from work at 7:45, Damon's door was closed and he never laid eyes on him all night. He said that's a little unusual, but that Damon's been moody lately. He did hear soft music playing, and he heard Damon make several phone calls around 10 p.m. This alibi is a little weak.
All right, and Mark.
This alibi has a few very interesting glitches. There is an Anne LeMay recorded as flying on United from Chicago to New York on Saturday, and the Paramount Plaza claims that Mark LeMay registered on Saturday for 1 week exactly. There's a note in the housekeeper's log that on Monday night, though, he didn't sleep in his own bed. Mark gave me the name of a friend that he claims he had dinner with. I called the friend, and the friend told me that, in fact, they did have dinner, but that they parted ways at around 8 p.m. If he went directly to the airport and caught a flight, and the time of death is off, conceivably, he could have committed the murder. But it's a long shot.
Okay. Miriam Tate.
Another professor in the anthropology department stayed late last night and saw Miriam Tate leave at around 7:30 last night. Let's see. No one saw her at Food Fix, but it's one of those huge grocery stores, mobbed with people, and that's not unusual. From there, the trail is cold. She reports going home. She lives alone. There is an interesting footnote. There's a second name on her lease, a Jean Bruneau. And according to police records, Bruneau was stopped at O'Hare International last year for carrying plastic explosive. He was arraigned at headquarters and released on bail, and he hasn't been seen since.
Alright, so possibly harboring a terrorist. Why not, right? Let's see what's up with Paul.
Paul Budnick's roommate confirms that his printer did wake her up at 1:15 because she looked at her clock. She got up and spoke to him about it, and he agreed to print the next day. Aside from that, no one saw him all night except when he left his room at 9 p.m. to make a cup of coffee. And his room is right on the fire escape, in case you're interested.
Okay, so he's got access to a fire escape from his place, so he could conceivably be able to come and go without much notice. And he is a younger gentleman with the athletic ability to pull that off. So
Richard Neiman's report syncs up. His wife did have a singing lesson. It was their usual Monday night pattern. He fed the children and put them to bed while she was out. What's interesting, though, is that he only lives 2 blocks before 22 Albrecht. He could have popped over to Elsbeth Haskard's after he put the children to sleep. He claims he put them down at 8:30, but when I went over to confirm this report, one of his children piped up, sharp as a tack, saying, "Daddy, remember, you put us to bed early that night."
and then Richard proceeded to cry. No, I'm kidding. Interesting, though. Yeah, he only lives 2 blocks away from Elspeth's apartment building. Put his kids to bed early, so... Alright, last but not least, Edward Talaman.
Edward Talaman's account of where he was verified by both his driver and the staff at the Jockey Club. That's the restaurant at the Ritz. Apparently he's back in the swim. They said that he ordered a $200 bottle of Red Bordeaux. The hotel phone records also showed that he made the phone calls to California that he said he did. Unless the time of death is way off, this places him comfortably away from the crime scene at the time of death.
Alright. Alright, so we've got all the alibis followed up on. Alright, now you'll see we're down to an hour and 16 minutes of gameplay. So the last time the last installment we had covered all of the apartment as well as the other sources except for the non-testimonial evidence, which, if I'm recalling correctly, it doesn't give us the access to. Oh no, it does. Now that we've done the we've done the alibi checkup. So we've got Alyssa saying no fingerprints, no positive matches to prints at the crime scene. She's blood type O positive, height 5'3", weight 101, women's size 7. All right. What do we got for Delgado?
Detective, 1 hour left.
Yeah.
Use your time wisely. From here on, every minute counts.
I'll make sure it does. So for Delgado, his fingerprints are a match to a set of fingerprints found on the victim's desk, which is interesting because, I mean, granted he would have been there at the time of investigating the breaking and entering. Blood type AB, height 5'9", 145 pounds, men's size 9, D width, Jamaica. No positive match for prints found anywhere in the victim's apartment, so Jamaica Baldwin seemingly has no tie to the actual crime scene. Blood type A negative, height 5'7", 130 pounds, woman's size 11, E width, Jody. No positive matches for prints found anywhere in the crime scene either in the apartment. B positive blood type, 5'6", 123 pounds, size 8, B width. Okay. Let's try Mark. Oh. This one, we're jumping right to the press conference because it says right here you only have a half hour left, which means we have to get through the press conference and then jump right to a warrant application.
How long has the victim been at the university?
Bear with me. I'm going to essentially pause the video for a second. You guys won't even notice anything because I'm just going to jump right back into the gameplay, give us a little bit more time on the clock so we can finish up the rest of those non-testimonial evidence sections, so we have that completed in its entirety before we move on, okay? Stay tuned. Alright, and just like that, we're back with a little under 3 hours of gameplay now because I just jumped ahead and started anew, made sure it was set to the murder number 1 scenario, got the remaining interviews in the can, as well as checked up on the alibis of the remaining suspects we haven't gotten the non-testimonial evidence for, so we're going to start with Mark. Oh, of course, let's see. I wonder what it was. I wonder if it's because of the crime scene, because I did, prior to starting recording, I did click on a couple of things. I wonder if now that I've, maybe once I click on just accessing the crime scene, you guys are essentially learning along with me here. That's all it took. Okay. So, Mark LeMay, his prints are on one of the pairs of prints found on the victim's desk. That makes sense. He was her boyfriend, on again, off again, not really sure. O positive, size 8, D width. Okay. Damon. Possible identification with corrupted prints found on the victim's torso. But positive ID is not possible. B negative, 5'11", 170 pounds, size 10C. Well, let's see what this is.
I know it's tempting to pin the murder on Damon because of the possible ID with the corrupted print on Elsbeth's face, but it won't hold up in court.
That's interesting. Now this is interesting. Agnes Murray's prints match one of the identified sets we found on the victim's desk. They also match one of the 2 sets found on the beads on the shrine. Why would Agnes's prints be anywhere in the apartment? Blood type AB, 5'4", 150, size 8.
Agnes Murray's fingerprints are in a number of unusual places in the apartment.
Very, very interesting. Carl? No positive matches for prints found anywhere in the victim's apartment. Okay. So he doesn't seem to be popping up anywhere that he shouldn't. Miriam. Okay. Miriam Tate's prints match those on the jar with the toad, as well as those on the string of beads. They also occur on the desk. So her fingerprints are in a few different spots. So she's obviously been in the apartment at one point or another.
Miriam Tate's fingerprints seem to be in an awful lot of places.
Detective, it's your chief speaking. Only 2 hours left. The university president just called, suggesting we solve this case right away. He's related to Senator Trombley, so do me a favor and wrap this thing up, would you?
Yeah. Paul Budnick. His prints have been matched to an unidentified set on the victim's desk. See, it would have made sense if his fingerprints were on her torso, even if he wasn't the murderer. Or on any part of her body, for that matter. A positive, 5'11", 160 pounds. Shoe size 11. E width, nothing of note. Good old Richard. Neiman's prints have been positively identified with one of the 6 unidentified sets on the victim's desk. That desk has gotten a lot more action than seems like Elspeth even did the night of her murder. Blood type, O positive, 5'10", 162, size 10, D width, no notes. Edward Talaman. No positive ID was made between the suspect's prints and any of those found at the crime scene. Okay. Alright, so we already got the other 4 out of the way. So, since we now have had a chance to get all of this done, and the 12 likely suspects have all been interviewed, we've followed up on their alibis, there really isn't much left for us, except I'm going to show you the crime scene. And much like Sam Rupert, you click on this here in the very first part, and it shows you all the places where you can essentially zoom in on. And you're able to conduct tests. Honestly, I remember when I first played this as a kid, it's you gather some of the forensic information is already contained in some of the notes, like on the autopsy report, in the non-testimonial evidence that we just read for each suspect. It kind of ties in things that we otherwise, you would think you'd have to access the crime scene in order to have that information, but obviously you don't. So if we just click on, just for the fun of it, the shrine, get out of this. So just looking at this, then you can kind of see where there's areas to zoom in on here. Like there's a tuft of grass there. There's actually, honestly, the picture, I would not have even known that there was even a snake up here. There's a bottle there. Mirror shards. Beads that were mentioned earlier that apparently have both Miriam Tate and Agnes Murray's fingerprints on them. A bottle of perfume. A box. And a toad in a jar. Just for the fun of it, we'll click on this here, the toad. Then you can get a little bit better idea that there is actually a toad in there. Maybe we can look at the fingerprints. Set of corrupted fingerprints on the jar. They appear to belong to small hands, but they are impossible to identify. So a pair of small hands were somehow handling this toad jar. And there's nothing else really. So the toad is an Osteopilus, etc., also known as a Cuban tree frog, variety common to the tropics. It is not native to the Midwestern United States. It is available through some pet shops. As far as we can figure out, the worm is a plain old earthworm. So there's a worm in there as well.
I called 30 pet shops in and around Chicago. 2 report carrying this species of frog. One of the stores sold one on Saturday to an elderly woman.
Interesting. You know what? Like in all the years I've played this game, I've never actually ventured to this and heard that note until now. But it's very, very intriguing that they included that. So this particular toad, this type of toad, was sold at only one of 2 pet shops in the area that actually carry them, and the purchaser was an elderly woman. We only have one elderly woman on our suspect list. Okay. And let's see. I'm gonna just try the snake out as well. Yeah, there's the snake. You can see him a lot better now. So nothing in terms of fingerprints. Let's see what this says. Common python. Available in several pet shops around town. Done. Let's see what the note is.
This appears to represent some connection to the victim's field work.
When we get to, let's see, like a little bit before the 30-minute mark, I'll do the same thing I did previously, and I'll jump to a pause essentially, and you guys won't even know anything of it, and we'll have a lot more gameplay hours available to us within a matter of seconds. Let's see about this chicken, since we're covering all the wildlife in the scene here. Analysis indicates that the blood that is visible throughout the scene matches that of the chicken. Okay, so no human blood is part of any of this ceremonial decor. Let's see.
What was it that Paul Budnick said about the zombie ceremony she recorded? Is that what's going on here?
Yep. Alright, apparently we can get out of this. Done. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the pause again since we have an hour left. I'll jump back up and we'll have probably close to the 6 hours because I'm not going to bother with the suspect interviews or any other of the things we already covered. So we'll have more than enough time to get to the press conference and some of our in-depth interviews. So, one moment, please. And just like that, we're back with a full 6 hours. Magic trick, right? Alright, so let's see. Let's try looking at this design that was left on the rug here. So we've got... This design has been made by powdered cornmeal. Okay. Nothing really unique. Preliminary inquiries indicate that this is the voodoo symbol for one of their deities, or Loa, which we learned about in one of our earlier installments. These symbols are typically drawn out on the ground before a voodoo dance to invoke the spirit's visit. Which, again, the symbol that's on the ground here didn't really match up with a murder or a death. There were far more appropriate symbols that could have been used, so it makes you wonder.
If we weren't sure about the connection to the victim's fieldwork before, this confirms it. I think we need to talk to an expert for more information.
Which we already have, so... let's see what these feathers are. Obviously it's from a chicken, but let's see if we can get any notes. These feathers match those belonging to the sacrificial chicken alongside the victim. That really, you know, kind of seems to be self-explanatory, but oh well. Let's see. So we can't... I think we have it. The victim's face, of course. This one we got a lot available to us. So fingerprints. Several sets of fingerprints in the mud that match the victims. There is a smudged partial print alongside the left jawbone. However, that does not match the victim's prints. This partial print belongs to someone else, currently unidentified.
If the victim's own prints show up in the mud, she must have put it on. Was it a part of some ceremony? And if it was her death an intentional part of it?
It's either that, or was she forced to put that on? Or was it done after her death with her own hands, you know? Plenty of options. Alright. Serological analysis. The composition of the mud covering the victim's face indicates that it is very old, weathered soil. Reddish hue is due to the presence of iron oxides. The presence of kaolinite without any silica or clay minerals indicates that this soil came from an area without any recent glacial activity. It may have a tropical source. In contrast, the soils predominant in the Chicago area are younger soils containing large amounts of vermiculite and Montmorillonite. Sure, look it up, you know. These soils tend to be micaceous, with the presence of potassium and magnesium. It is safe to state that the mud on the victim's face did not come from the Chicago region. Okay.
Why would you use mud from somewhere else? Does this mud have a special significance? This is a compelling detail.
Although there is a great deal of blood on the white dress covering the body, in the area surrounding the shrine and on the victim's palms, there is no blood on the victim's face. Okay.
The placement of the blood seems intentional. Is it also ceremonial?
Okay, there are trace amounts of red wine on the victim's upper lip.
The wine was probably consumed shortly before her death. This is interesting because red wine represents the blood of Christ in the Catholic Mass, and the victim is arranged as if she were nailed to a cross.
But that doesn't match up with voodoo. Alright, so let's see no viable fingerprints available on the dress. There are also no fingerprints detectable on the mud on the victim's torso. We knew about the There was a slight match with Damon Haskard's prints, but nothing that we can actually nail down.
Since there are no prints on the mud covering her torso, my guess is that it was applied with gloves.
Okay. Blood on the dress covering Elspeth Haskard's torso is not human blood. The cells are nucleated, which, along with their small size and shape, indicate that the blood belongs to an animal, possibly the chicken alongside the shrine. The mud is identical to that found on the victim's face. Its composition indicates that it is not from the Chicago area. It does match soil types that would be indigenous to Haiti. Okay, analysis of the blood pattern on the dress covering the victim's torso indicates the blood was probably dripped onto the dress in a swinging motion from a height of 2 to 3 feet. Okay.
I'd like to know if animal sacrifice plays a part in voodoo and ritual.
From what little I know, that the answer to that question is yes. The dress appears to be handmade from lightweight white cotton. Damon Haskard says he thinks it belonged to his sister before her death. So it's not a ceremonial dress.
This is not a garment you'd wear in Chicago weather. It looks like something she wore in Haiti.
Okay. Alright, so we've looked at, let's see what was over here. This was another angle of the desk that we've already looked at. However, it doesn't look like we can click on anything specific. It's just a desk. So let's do this. Fingerprints. Yes.
Just a reminder from the chief. You've got 5 big ones left.
As we know, there are 6 different sets of fingerprints on the desk or the desk materials. One set, the most profuse, matches the victim's prints. Their other 5 are unidentified. Although that's not the case, because we know that Paul Budnick, Agnes Murray, Lieutenant Delgado, Mark LeMay, I believe that might be it that we know for sure that were identified as fingerprints on the desk area. Analysis of the blood indicates a match to the blood on the white dress, on the carpet, and near the altar. Source of the blood is probably the chicken. I don't even see blood on the desk. 2 different patterns of blood splatter overlap. One pattern indicates blood dripped from above. The second indicates that the droplets hit on an angle with force from approximately 3 feet away. Interesting. Further information, see victim's desk under other sources, which we already have. Alright, and no notes beyond that. So, I'd say it looks like we do have everything except for what we didn't focus in on with the shrine. So let's see if we can... Let's see this. Okay. The bottle contains trace amounts of rose, sandalwood, ambergris, and violet essences. We contacted the manufacturer, and they're all part of the formula for this perfume. Okay.
As they say, everything but the kitchen sink. What's this doing here? Her brother claims she never wore perfume.
Oh. She never wore perfume, huh? Makes you wonder if that's even hers. Okay. Okay, and we have a box here. Several sets of the victim's fingerprints on the boxes. And what do we got here? From a pattern left by dust, these look like they belonged on the victim's chest of drawers in her bedroom. Makes you wonder, like, again, was it just really quickly thrown together? Alright. All fingerprints on the mirror are corrupted. No clean prints are available. 3 fingerprints on the melted wax match the victim's. Okay.
The candle may have originally belonged to the victim, but if some sort of ceremony was performed, Elspeth Hasgard may have been involved, at least at the beginning.
Standard text on Voodoo describes the relationship with the spiritual world as a mirror.
I'm thinking of what Jody Howland downstairs said about hearing something shatter. Could it have been this mirror?
Let's see what this is. No fingerprints anywhere on this bottle. Okay, this is what I think we were looking for. Analysis of contents indicates trace amounts of the following, all in powdered form. Ground bone, probably from mammals. The leaves of the common cashew tree. Seeds from Trachilla hirta, a tree in the mahogany family. Nettles. The skins of a Cuban tree toad. 2 types of tarantulas. And 2 species of blowfish. Several contain active compounds. The cashew tree is a member of the poison ivy family. The nettles are a severe skin irritant. The blowfish contain tetrodotoxin, a neurotoxin that is one of the single most powerful poisons known.
The OMI says that even a tiny amount of tetrodotoxin will kill you if ingested. There are life-threatening side effects simply from touching it. I suspect this poison may be the cause of death, but we'll have to wait for the autopsy to be positive.
And I believe if I recall, we already looked at the the autopsy report. So we know that it was a neurotoxin that did cause her death. Alright. All those left is the beads. I've identified 2 different sets of prints, both unknown. Although to us we do know that those two different prints are Agnes Murray and Miriam Tate. Necklaces appear to be cheap glass beads of no particular origin. Okay. I think the only thing we did not look at was the tuft of grass. Lab analysis show this to be common field grass. So again, nothing really connected to the ceremony. All right. So I think we've covered absolutely everything we can. So we're going to get past the press conference. Yes, in this case, we've technically gone way over our allotted time of gameplay to be confident that we're going to be fine in the press conference. So.
Detective, there are 4 hours left. Have you looked at the apartment yet?
Yes, we have.
There was an audio tape found at the scene of the crime. What does it say? Who does it implicate?
Well, we know it implicates Mark LeMay.
How much does Miriam Kate weigh?
Was she 110, I believe? No, I guess not.
Which Loa was represented by a ritual drawing at the scene of the crime?
I believe it was Damballa. Yes.
What killed Elspeth Asgard?
Tetrodotoxin, we know.
How many sets of unidentified prints did you find at the crime scene on the victim's desk?
We know that was 6.
Was the victim a voodoo priestess?
That one we have no answer either way, so we're going to go with not positive.
How much does Richard Neiman weigh?
Neiman, I believe he was 162? Yes.
What was the official cause of death?
I believe from what we saw in the autopsy was suffocation? Yes.
How much does Edward Talaman weigh?
Talaman, I want to say he was 160. Nope,
What
that's
time
not.
was the body discovered?
It was in the morning. Yep, around 10 a.m. Nice.
Great job with the press, Detective. You really let them know who's boss. Now you can conduct in-depth interviews with up to 3 suspects, or go straight to making your warrant application. Whatever happens, good luck.
All right. So, if you'll remember from last time when we played Sam Rupert, this is our opportunity to pick up to 3 people within our gameplay that we can ask more in-depth questions of, possibly, learn a little bit more about not just the people we're interviewing, but about the other suspects, or just the murder in general, and it may even give us that one little tidbit of information that we're looking for to actually nail down a murderer. So, we are now at collectively just a little shy of 45 minutes in this installment, so I'm going to actually end it here. So we've covered every aspect of the case up until these final interviews, and so in our next installment we will do all the final interviews and also proceed to getting our warrant applications filled out for each of these suspects, see which ones we can get explanations for as to why they're not the murderer, and finish off with catching our killer. And then we can basically have an easier time going into the next 2 scenarios, because we'll have all of this ground already covered, so it'll just be a matter of maybe just jumping into scenario 2 and maybe kind of finding little things that maybe have changed within the context of the story, and see if it applies to a different killer or killers. But again, this has been fun. Beacon of Hype, thanking you guys for tuning in again. Please feel free to hit the like button on here, subscribe to the channel, do everything you can to, maybe to trigger notifications, anything to help the channel out. I'm trying to slowly but surely get a little bit more views on here and get some sense of popularity rolling. Hopefully there's a lot of people like me that enjoy these games and seeing them played out old school. But again, feel free to like, subscribe, do all you can. I appreciate everybody that watches these, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.